Hashtag Historical Stories for Sleep. Volume 4, Sacred Twilights. Hashtag Section 1. Introduction and the Breath of Ages. Welcome back, gentle soul, to this threshold between day and night, between waking and sleeping, between the world of action and the realm of dreams. As you settle into this moment, into this breath, into the perfect comfort of wherever you rest, feel yourself joining an ancient current that flows through all of human history, the breath of ages, the eternal respiration of consciousness itself, breathing in and breathing out, receiving and releasing, holding and letting go. Take a deep breath now, drawing air slowly and fully into your lungs, feeling your chest and belly expand, feeling life itself entering your body. Hold that breath for just a moment, experiencing the fullness, the pause between movements. And now release, letting that breath flow out with a gentle sigh, feeling your body soften and settle as the air leaves. Again, breathe in peace and stillness. Hold, and breathe out tension and effort. One more time, breathing in the sacred quiet of this moment, and breathing out all that you no longer need to carry. Your breathing will continue now of its own accord, finding its natural rhythm, slowing and deepening as your body recognizes that rest is coming, that the day's work is complete, that sleep's healing embrace awaits you. You need not think about breathing. Your body knows how, has known since your first moment of life, will continue knowing until your last. Trust this ancient wisdom that predates thought, that exists in every cell, that connects you to all living things that have ever drawn breath. Tonight, we journey once more through time's vast landscape, but our destinations will be places of sacred practice, of spiritual devotion, of tending to the invisible threads that connect humans to the divine, to ancestors, to the deep patterns that give life meaning beyond mere survival. We will stand beside fire keepers and healers, scribes and painters, songkeepers and record keepers, people whose lives were dedicated to maintaining sacred knowledge, to performing rituals that sustain their communities, to preserving wisdom across generations. Feel your body now, heavy and relaxed, supported completely by whatever surface holds you. Your head rests on its pillow, the weight of your skull surrendered fully. Your face softens, all the tiny muscles that hold expressions throughout the day now releasing, becoming smooth and peaceful. Your jaw hangs loose, your tongue rests quietly in your mouth. Your eyes are closed or closing, the lids heavy and still. Your neck releases, allowing your head to rest more deeply. Your shoulders drop away from your ears, all that accumulated tension flowing downward and away like water, finding its level. Your arms lie peacefully wherever they have settled, requiring no effort to maintain their position. Your hands rest open or gently closed, your fingers relaxed and curled naturally. Your chest and belly soften with each breath, rising and falling in that ancient rhythm that measures out your life in moments, in breaths, in the eternal now that is all that truly exists. Your back spreads wide, each vertebra releasing its neighbors, the whole spine settling into alignment without effort or intention. Your hips rest heavily, your legs are loose and limp, your feet relaxed completely, all the small bones and muscles that have carried you through the day now surrendering to gravity's gentle pull. The people we will meet tonight lived in different lands, spoke different languages, worshipped different manifestations of the divine. Yet they shared essential experiences, the daily practice of sacred duties, the evening rituals that marked the transition from light to darkness, the deep satisfaction of work that serves something greater than oneself, the peace that comes from living in accordance with ancient traditions and spiritual truths. In a fire temple in ancient Persia, we will watch flames that have burned for centuries, tended by priests who understand fire as the visible presence of divine truth. In the Mayan highlands, we will sit with a midwife who holds in her memory the healing knowledge of generations. In Ethiopian highlands, we will observe a monk illuminating manuscripts in one of the rock-hewn churches carved from living stone. In Mughal India, we will stand beside a painter creating miniature worlds of exquisite beauty. In the Australian desert, we will listen to an elder singing the songlines that map both landscape and sacred narrative. In the high Andes, we will watch a keeper of quipu, the knotted strings that recorded the affairs of an empire without written language. Each of these people performed sacred work, maintained sacred knowledge, participated in practices that connected their communities to powers and patterns beyond the visible world. Their work was not separate from their spirituality, but was itself a form of prayer, of devotion, of service to the divine however they understood it. As we journey together, you may notice your thoughts becoming fewer, more distant, like clouds drifting across a vast empty sky. This is natural and welcome. The thinking mind is loosening its grip, preparing to rest, allowing deeper levels of consciousness to emerge. If you drift away into sleep before our journey ends, that is perfect. The stories will continue to work in those deeper places, guiding you gently into the most restorative rest you have known. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to accomplish. No moment, but this one stretching out before you like an endless shore where gentle waves lap at the sand in perfect rhythm, eternal and soothing. You are safe, you are comfortable, you are held in the embrace of this moment and this place. The only invitation is to listen, to imagine, and to allow yourself to gradually, gently, inevitably drift toward the blessed darkness of sleep. Let us begin our journey in ancient Persia, in the time of the Achaemenid Empire, when Zoroaster's teachings about the eternal struggle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood, had given shape to one of the world's great religions. The sun is setting behind the Zagros Mountains, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, and we find ourselves approaching a fire temple where sacred flames have burned continuously for generations, tended by priests who understand their work as nothing less than keeping divine truth alive in the world. Section 2. Ancient Persia, Zoroastrian Fire Temple, 500 BCE. The mountain air grows cool as evening approaches, though the day's heat still radiates from the stone walls of the fire temple perched on a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley below. Inside the temple's sacred chamber, the priest Zarathustra, named after the prophet who founded this faith, though he himself is simply a devoted servant, tends the eternal flame that burns in the bronze fire holder at the chamber's center, adding fragrant sandalwood to maintain the blaze, ensuring that this visible manifestation of Ahura Mazda's presence never dims or fails. Zarathustra is 56 years old, his beard white and full, his face deeply lined by decades of devotion, his movements deliberate and graceful with the precision that comes from performing the same rituals thousands of times. He wears the white robes of his priesthood, kept scrupulously clean, for purity is essential in the presence of sacred fire. Across his face, he wears the padam, a white cloth covering nose and mouth, to prevent his breath from polluting the holy flames. For fire is the son of Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, and must be protected from contamination. The fire temple is built of pale limestone, its interior walls polished smooth, its ceilings supported by carved columns that seem to grow from the floor like sacred trees. The chamber where the fire burns is the heart of the temple, but surrounding it are other rooms for ritual bathing, for storing sacred implements, for prayer and meditation. The entire complex is oriented toward the sacred fire, which has burned continuously for 3 generations, fed by priests who take turns in shifts throughout the day and night, ensuring that darkness never conquers this manifestation of divine light. The fire itself burns in a large bronze holder called an atashtan, elevated on a stone platform so that it stands at chest height. The flames dance and leap, casting moving shadows on the walls, transforming the chamber into a space between worlds, between the material and the spiritual, between darkness and light. Zarathustra watches the flames with the attention of long practice, reading in their movements the messages some believe the fire communicates, bright and strong when truth prevails, dimmer when falsehood gains ground in the world's eternal struggle. As the sun descends toward the western mountains, Zarathustra performs the evening ritual, the Atash Nayesh, the litany of praise to fire. He stands before the flames with hands raised in prayer, his voice chanting the ancient Avestan words that have been spoken in fire temples across Persia for centuries. We worship fire, the son of Ahura Mazda, worthy of worship, worthy of prayer. May we be among those who renew the world. May we be among those who make wonderful the world. The words flow from him automatically, committed to memory through years of daily repetition, yet they never become merely mechanical. Each time he speaks them, he tries to bring fresh awareness, genuine devotion, understanding that these are not just sounds, but sacred utterances that connect him to the divine reality underlying all existence. Fire for Zoroastrians is not merely a symbol, but an actual theophany, a place where the divine and material worlds intersect, where Ahura Mazda's presence can be directly encountered. The prayer complete, Zarathustra adds more wood to the fire, carefully selected pieces of sandalwood and almond wood, never pine, or other resinous woods that would produce unclean smoke. The wood has been purified through prayer before being offered to the flames, just as everything that comes into contact with sacred fire must be ritually clean. The handover complete, Zarathustra removes his ritual garments and stores them carefully, then performs his ablutions in the temple's washing room. Zoroastrian purity laws are complex and demanding. Contact with death, with certain animals, with bodily fluids requires purification through prescribed rituals. Even the simple act of washing hands and face becomes a spiritual exercise when performed with proper intention and awareness. He leaves the temple as the last light fades from the sky, walking down the stone path toward the small dwelling where he lives with his wife and one remaining child. His other children grown and married, living in the valley below where they farm the fertile lands irrigated by the river. The path winds through rocky terrain dotted with juniper and wild pistachio trees, the air scented with herbs that grow in the thin mountain soil. His home is modest, built of sun-dried brick with a flat roof, typical of Persian architecture in this region. Inside, his wife has prepared the evening meal: flatbread baked in the clay oven, mutton stewed with apricots and spices, yogurt mixed with cucumber and mint, dates from the trees that line the valley floor. They eat together, speaking little but companionably, their long marriage requiring few words to maintain its warmth and understanding. After eating, Zarathustra sits in his courtyard, looking up at the stars now brilliant in the clear mountain air. He identifies the constellations that Zoroastrians have named and invested with meaning: the Great Bear, the Seven Judges, the Star of Tishtria that brings rain. These stars, like the sacred fire, are manifestations of divine light, each one a spark of Ahura Mazda's creative power shining through the material darkness. He thinks about the prophet Zarathustra, who lived perhaps 1,000 years ago, who received divine revelation, who taught that the world is not a place of meaningless suffering, but a cosmic arena where the choices of conscious beings matter, where humans are called to align themselves with truth and righteousness, where ultimately, after millennia of struggle, light will triumph over darkness and the world will be renovated into a perfect creation. This eschatological hope gives meaning to daily practice, to the seemingly endless repetition of rituals, to the careful tending of sacred fire year after year. Zarathustra the priest is part of something vast and meaningful, his small life connected to cosmic purposes, his daily work contributing to the eventual triumph of good over evil, truth over falsehood, light over darkness. He performs his evening prayers privately, standing to face the fire temple on the hill above, bowing and reciting the prayers that every Zoroastrian says at sunset. Come to my help, O Ahura Mazda. Give me victory, give me health, give me force, give me life. The prayers are not requests for personal favor, but affirmations of alignment with divine will, declarations of commitment to the path of Asha, the cosmic order. Prayers complete, Zarathustra enters his sleeping chamber, a simple room with a sleeping platform covered with felt carpets and wool blankets. He lies down, feeling the day's tiredness settling into his bones. The work of firekeeping is not physically demanding, but the constant attention it requires, the need for ritual purity, the weight of responsibility for maintaining this unbroken lineage of sacred flame. All this creates a subtle exhaustion that he feels now as sleep approaches. Through the small window, he can see a single bright star, Venus, which Zoroastrians associate with the Yazada Anahita, the deity of waters. He murmurs one last prayer, thanking Ahura Mazda for another day, for the privilege of serving the sacred fire, for the health and safety of his family, for the continued strength of the faith in a world that often seems dark and chaotic. Sleep comes gently, bringing dreams of fire that does not burn, of light that illuminates without consuming, of ascending through spheres of pure radiance toward the infinite source from which all light flows. In his dream, he understands that the fire he tends is not separate from himself, that he too is a flame kindled by the divine breath, burning briefly in the darkness, maintained by sacred purpose, destined to return eventually to the source from which he came. The dream is peaceful, suffused with warmth and light, reflecting his deepest beliefs about the nature of existence, about the cosmic drama in which he plays his small but essential part. Section 3. Mayan Highlands. Midwife's Home, 800 CE. The afternoon rain has passed, leaving the highland village wrapped in mist, the thatched roofs of houses dripping with moisture, the scent of wet earth and growing maize filling the cool air. In her small house built of adobe and stone, the midwife Ixchilkin, whose name means son of the goddess, sorts through bundles of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, selecting plants she will need for tomorrow's work. A young woman is preparing to give birth, her first child, and Ixchilkin has been called to attend. Ixchilkin is 72 years old, her face deeply creased with age, her hands gnarled but still capable, still knowing through decades of experience exactly how to position a breech baby, how to massage a woman's belly to help labor progress, how to tie the umbilical cord and cut it at the proper moment. She learned her craft from her grandmother, who learned from her grandmother before her, the knowledge passing through generations of women who served as guardians of birth, as bridges between the world of the living and the realm from which new souls arrive. The herbs she gathers now are part of that ancient knowledge. Rue to strengthen contractions, chamomile to calm anxiety, cinnamon bark to prevent bleeding after birth, and most importantly, the sacred plant the Maya call Ninkalalha, whose root when boiled creates a tea that eases pain and helps the cervix open. Each plant has been gathered at the proper time, some during full moon, others at specific times of year, and prepared according to traditional methods, their powers activated through prayer and ritual as much as through their inherent chemical properties. The village where Ixchilkin lives is small, perhaps 200 people, perched on a mountainside at an altitude where clouds often brush the earth, where the climate is cool enough that blankets are needed at night, where maize and beans grow in terraced fields carved into the steep slopes. The houses are scattered among milpa gardens, each family maintaining the traditional Three Sisters agriculture, maize providing stalks for beans to climb, beans fixing nitrogen in the soil, squash spreading low to shade the earth and prevent erosion. As evening approaches, Ixchilkin lights a fire in her cooking hearth, the three stones that support the cooking pot, representing the three stones of creation that the gods placed to establish the cosmic order. She prepares a simple meal of corn tortillas and black beans, adding a little chili and herbs from her garden. She eats alone, her husband dead these 10 years, her children grown and living in their own households. But she does not feel lonely. The spirits of her ancestors are present, she believes, gathered around her fire, watching over her, guiding her hands in her sacred work. After eating, she visits the house where tomorrow's birth will occur, bringing herbs and reassurance. The young mother-to-be is nervous, her first pregnancy having been difficult, marked by nausea and back pain. Ixchilkin examines her gently, feeling the position of the baby through the taut skin of the belly, listening to the child's heartbeat by placing her ear against the woman's abdomen. Everything seems normal. The baby is positioned correctly, head down, ready to emerge when the time comes. The goddess Ixchil watches over you. Ixchilkin tells the young woman, invoking the moon goddess who is patron of midwives, of weaving, of childbirth. She who was grandmother of all gods will be your grandmother tomorrow. She will guide your baby safely into the world. The words are not mere comfort, but sacred truth, as Ixchilkin understands it. Birth is not simply a biological process, but a spiritual journey, a moment when the veil between worlds grows thin, when divine forces intervene to bring new souls into material existence. Returning to her own house as darkness falls completely, Ixchilkin performs her evening devotions at the small altar she maintains in the corner of her room. The altar holds images of the goddess Ixchel in her various aspects: young moon maiden, pregnant mother, old wise woman, along with candles, copal incense, offerings of flowers and food. She lights the incense, its sweet smoke rising toward the thatched roof, carrying her prayers to the divine realm. She prays in her native Maya tongue, the language her people have spoken for thousands of years, the language in which the sacred stories have been told since time beyond memory. Mother Ixchel, keeper of the moon, guardian of birth, grant me wisdom tomorrow. Guide my hands to do what is needed. Let the mother be strong, the baby healthy, the birth safe. I am your servant, your instrument. Work through me as you have worked through all the midwives who came before me. The prayer complete, Ixchel Kin sits on the woven mat that serves as her bed, wrapped in a blanket against the mountain cold. Her house has no windows, only a doorway covered with a cloth, so the darkness is complete except for the faint glow of coals in the cooking hearth. She can hear the sounds of the village settling for the night, voices calling final good nights, dogs barking, the eternal song of insects and frogs that fills highland evenings. She thinks about the births she has attended over her long career, hundreds of them, perhaps thousands if she includes the time she assisted her grandmother before taking on the midwife role herself. Most have ended well, with healthy babies and mothers, with joy and celebration. But some have ended in sorrow, with babies who never drew breath, with mothers who bled too much, with complications her skills could not remedy. These memories pain her still, though she knows she did everything possible, though she understands that life and death are both sacred, both part of the goddess's domain. The midwife's work is not separate from the sacred, but is itself a form of priestess service, she reflects. To bring new life into the world, to guide souls across the threshold of incarnation, to be present at the moment of greatest vulnerability and greatest possibility. This is holy work, work that connects her to the deepest mysteries of existence. Ixchel Kin lies down on her mat, pulling the blanket up to her chin. The altitude makes the night cold, but she is accustomed to it, has slept this way all her life. Through gaps in the thatch, she can see stars, countless stars brilliant in the thin mountain air, stars the Maya have mapped and named and woven into their calendars and mythologies. She thinks about tomorrow's birth, visualizing it going smoothly, the baby emerging easily, the mother staying strong. This visualization is itself a form of magic, of prayer, of helping to shape reality through intention and sacred imagination. If she can see it clearly, if she can feel the rightness of it, then she helps to make it so. This is part of the midwife's power, part of what makes her work effective. Her breathing slows and deepens. The sounds of the night continue around her, wind moving through the thatch, the distant call of a night bird, the whisper of rain beginning again on the roof. These sounds do not disturb her, but rather lull her towards sleep, familiar and comforting, the sounds of her world, her place, her life. Ixchel Kin dreams of the goddess for whom she is named, sees her in her moon aspect, radiant and powerful, descending from the sky to bless a birth, to place her divine hands over the hands of the midwife, to work through mortal women to bring new souls into the world. In the dream, she understands that all midwives across all time are one midwife, that she is connected to every woman who has ever helped another woman give birth, that this work is eternal, unchanged across centuries and cultures, a sacred constant in human experience. She sees in her dream the long line of women who came before her grandmother, her grandmother's grandmother, stretching back through generations to the mythic ancestresses who learned midwifery directly from the goddess. And she sees the future women who will come after, who will continue this work, who will maintain this sacred knowledge, ensuring that birth remains not a medical procedure, but a spiritual journey, a crossing of thresholds, a moment of divine intervention in human affairs. The dream is peaceful, purposeful, suffused with feminine power and ancient wisdom. When morning comes and she wakes to attend the birth, she will carry this dream's confidence with her, will move through her work with calm assurance, will serve as the goddess's instrument, helping to bring new life safely into the world as she has done so many times before, as she will continue to do for as long as her hands remain capable and the goddess calls her to this sacred service. Section 4. Medieval Ethiopia, monastery scribe, 1300 CE. The afternoon light filters through the narrow windows of the rock-hewn church of Bet Georgis in Lalibela, carved entirely from living rock in the shape of a cross, its walls descending deep into the earth, a structure that seems to grow downward rather than upward, connecting earth to heaven in a way that defies ordinary architecture. In a small chamber adjacent to the church, the monk Tekel Haymanot bends over a vellum manuscript, his reed pen dipping into ink made from lamp black and gum Arabic, carefully forming the elegant characters of Guizi script, the ancient liturgical language of Ethiopian Christianity. Tekel Haymanot is 38 years old, his face still youthful despite years of monastic discipline, his dark eyes intense with concentration as he works on the manuscript spread before him. A gospel book that will take him months to complete, every word copied with absolute accuracy from an earlier exemplar. Every letter formed according to the traditional proportions and styles that have been passed down through generations of Ethiopian scribes. The chamber where he works is small and austere. Its walls the same volcanic tuff from which the entire church complex was carved in the 12th century by order of King Lalibela, who dreamed of creating a new Jerusalem in the highlands of Ethiopia. The room contains little beyond what is necessary for his work: a low wooden desk, a cushion for sitting, shelves holding exemplars and finished manuscripts, jars of ink and bundles of pens, and in one corner, a small icon of Saint Tekel Haymanot, the Ethiopian saint after whom he was named, who reportedly prayed standing for 7 years until one of his legs withered and fell off, yet continued standing on the other leg for 7 more years. The manuscript Tekel Haymanot is copying is itself a sacred object, not merely a text, but an embodiment of divine word made visible through human craft. The vellum pages are made from goat skin, carefully prepared and smooth, their surface treated to receive ink without bleeding or smudging. The ink he uses must be deep black and permanent, capable of lasting for centuries without fading. The pen must be cut at exactly the right angle to produce the thick downstrokes and thin horizontal strokes that characterize Guizi calligraphy. As the afternoon advances toward evening, Tekel Haymanot completes the page he has been working on, a passage from the Gospel of John, the prologue about the Word becoming flesh, dwelling among humanity. The Guizi text flows across the page in even lines, each letter perfectly formed, the spacing between words and lines carefully measured. At the top of the page, he has begun an illumination, a decorative initial letter composed of interlaced patterns in red and yellow and blue, the traditional colors of Ethiopian manuscript art, derived from natural pigments: red from ochre, yellow from sulfur, blue from imported lapis or local indigo. The work demands absolute concentration, absolute precision. A single error would require scraping away the ink and starting again, or worse, might require destroying the entire page and beginning anew. Tekel Haymanot has trained for years to develop the steadiness of hand and keenness of eye necessary for this work. He began as a child in the monastery school, learning first to read and write ordinary Guizi, then progressing to the specialized skills of manuscript production, preparing vellum, mixing inks, cutting pens, understanding the grammar and spelling of classical texts, mastering the traditional styles of letters and decoration. As the light begins to fade, it is difficult to work by lamplight, as the flickering shadows make it hard to judge proportions and colors accurately. Tekel Haymanot sets aside his pen and carefully closes the manuscript, covering it with a clean cloth to protect it from dust. Tomorrow he will continue, adding more text, perhaps beginning another illumination. The work will go on for months, requiring patience and dedication, but when complete, the manuscript will be a treasure, a sacred object used in liturgy, studied by scholars, preserved for future generations. He leaves his working chamber and joins other monks in the courtyard carved from rock between the churches. The monastery is built entirely within and around these rock-hewn churches, with cells and passages carved into the stone, creating a warren of sacred spaces connected by narrow tunnels and steep stairways. The entire complex was created by carving downward into the mountain, removing thousands of tons of rock to create churches and courtyards that lie below ground level, their roofs at the level of the surrounding plateau. The evening prayers are about to begin, and the monks gather in the main church, Bet Georgis, descending the stairs carved into the rock walls of the deep pit at the bottom of which the church sits, its roof carved in the shape of a perfect Greek cross. Inside, the church is dim and cool, its walls bare rock carved with niches and arches, its floor covered with woven carpets, its air heavy with the scent of incense. The prayers are chanted in Gizi, the same language Tekle Haymanot has been writing all day, but now the words come alive in music, in the traditional Ethiopian liturgical chant that rises and falls in haunting melodies, accompanied by the rhythmic shaking of sistrums, metal rattles that create a sound like rain, like the voice of angels. The monks sway as they chant, their movements synchronized, their voices blending into a single sound that fills the church and seems to resonate in the very rock from which it is carved. Tekle Haymanot loses himself in the prayer, his voice joining with the others, his body moving with the rhythm, his mind emptied of thought and filled instead with pure devotion, pure presence. This is why he became a monk, not primarily for the scholarly work of manuscript copying, though he loves that too, but for these moments of communal prayer, of surrendering individual consciousness to something larger, of participating in a tradition that connects him to centuries of Ethiopian Christians who have prayed in this same language, in this same way, seeking the same divine presence. The prayers complete, the monks share a simple evening meal in the refectory, injera, the spongy flatbread made from teff flour that is the staple of Ethiopian cuisine, topped with what? A spicy lentil stew. They eat in silence, maintaining the discipline of mindful eating, aware of each bite, grateful for the sustenance. After the meal, there is a brief period of recreation when conversation is permitted, and Tekle Haymanot speaks with an older monk about a question of Guizi grammar he encountered in today's copying. As full darkness falls, the monks retire to their individual cells, small rock-carved chambers barely large enough for a sleeping mat, a shelf for a few possessions, and an icon for private prayer. Tekle Haymanot's cell is particularly small, carved high in the wall of the church complex, accessed by a steep stairway. But he does not mind its cramped dimensions. He needs little space, seeks no comfort beyond what is necessary for health and effective work. He performs his evening devotions before his icon of Mary and the Christ child, painted in the traditional Ethiopian style with large eyes and frontal composition, the figures gazing directly out at the viewer with expressions of serene authority. He lights a small lamp filled with oil, its flame casting dancing shadows on the rock walls, and prays quietly, thanking God for another day, for the gift of his work, for the fellowship of his monastic brothers, for the beauty of this holy place carved from the living rock. Lying down on his sleeping mat, wrapped in a simple wool blanket, Tekle Haymanot can hear the night sounds of the monastery, distant footsteps echoing in rock passages, the murmur of a monk praying in his cell, the eternal whisper of wind moving through the courtyards and tunnels of this subterranean complex. These sounds comfort him, marking his belonging to this community, this place, this life of prayer and scholarship. He thinks about the manuscript he is creating, about how it will survive long after he is gone, how it will carry forward the sacred words, how it will serve the church for generations. This gives his work meaning beyond his individual existence, connects him to something eternal. He is not merely copying words, but participating in the transmission of divine truth, maintaining the chain of tradition that links his present to the apostolic past and extends into an unimaginable future. Sleep comes gently, bringing dreams of words and light, of the gospel text he has been copying taking visible form, becoming luminous, rising from the page to fill the carved rock church with radiance. In his dream, the words are not separate from their meaning, but are themselves divine presence, incarnate wisdom, the Word made flesh that the gospel speaks of, dwelling now in these carefully formed letters, in this manuscript he is creating with such devotion and care. Section 5. Mughal India, Miniature Painter's Studio, 1650 CE. The heat of the Agra afternoon is finally beginning to ease as the sun descends toward the Yamuna River, its light transforming the white marble of the Taj Mahal into a structure that seems to float between earth and sky, neither fully solid nor entirely ethereal. In his studio in the Imperial Workshop complex, the miniature painter Mir Syed Ali puts the finishing touches on a painting no larger than his hand. A scene from a Persian poem showing lovers meeting in a garden, every detail rendered with microscopic precision. Individual flower petals, blades of grass, the pattern of a textile, the expressions on faces that could only be seen properly with a magnifying lens. Mir Syed Ali is 45 years old, the son and grandson of court painters, trained from childhood in the exacting art of Mughal miniature painting that combines Persian traditions brought by Babur and Humayun with Indian sensibilities of color and composition, creating a synthesis that represents the cultural fusion of Mughal civilization itself. His eyes are still sharp despite decades of close work, his hands steady, his understanding of color and composition profound and intuitive, developed through years of looking at masterworks, of mixing pigments, of applying paint with brushes so fine they consist of only 3 or 4 hairs. The painting he is completing today has taken him 3 weeks to create, working several hours each day when the light is optimal, strong enough to see clearly, but not so bright as to cause harsh shadows or glare on the painting surface. The paper itself is special, made from cotton rags beaten to a smooth pulp, burnished with agate until the surface becomes almost glassy, prepared with a thin wash of white lead and gum that gives it a luminous quality perfect for receiving the jewel-like colors of miniature painting. The pigments Mir Syed Ali uses are precious, some imported at great expense from distant lands. Lapis lazuli ground to powder for the blue of the sky, gold leaf for highlights and special details, cinnabar for the brilliant red of a lady's dress, orpiment for yellows, organic dyes for greens and purples. Each color must be mixed fresh each day, ground on a stone palette with just the right amount of gum binder, tested on scrap paper to ensure it has the proper consistency and hue. The painting shows a nocturnal garden scene, a favorite subject in Mughal and Persian art, combining elements of reality and fantasy. Real flowers, roses and irises and lilies, but arranged in patterns more perfect than nature. Real architecture, but idealized. Real human figures, but made beautiful beyond ordinary humanity. The garden represents paradise, the Persian word for which, firdaus, originally meant an enclosed garden, a place of perfect beauty and harmony protected from the harsh desert world outside. As the afternoon light begins to take on the golden quality that signals approaching evening, Mir Syed Ali sets down his brush. The painting is nearly complete. Tomorrow he will add the final details, the gold highlights that will make certain elements catch the light, the tiny inscriptions that identify the scene, and perhaps include a verse from the poem being illustrated. Then the painting will be mounted on a page with calligraphy, bound into a manuscript that some noble will treasure, that may be passed down through generations, that may survive for centuries if it is properly cared for. He cleans his brushes meticulously, using water to remove the pigment, then shaping the bristles to fine points, storing them in a wooden box where they will be protected from damage. The pigments are returned to their small containers, sealed against moisture and contamination. The painting itself is covered with a sheet of thin paper to protect it from dust, then placed in a portfolio where it will remain until tomorrow's work session. The studio where Mir Syed Ali works is part of the Imperial Kitabkhana, the manuscript workshop where dozens of artists, calligraphers, bookbinders, and illuminators work to create the magnificent manuscripts that are among the greatest treasures of the Mughal court. The building is well designed for artistic work, with north-facing windows that provide steady light, thick walls that keep the interior cool even during Agra's fierce summers, and separate rooms for different stages of manuscript production. Mir Syed Ali walks through the workshop, greeting other artists who are finishing their day's work. A calligrapher who has been writing out pages of Persian poetry in the elegant Nastaliq script, an illuminator who decorates margins with intricate geometric and floral patterns, a junior artist who has been preparing papers and mixing pigments, learning the craft through apprenticeship as Mir Syed Ali himself learned decades ago. He leaves the workshop and walks through the streets of Agra toward his home in the artist's quarter, passing through markets where merchants are beginning to pack up their goods for the day, past mosques where the call to Maghrib prayer is about to sound, past gardens where fountains splash and birds sing in the trees. The city is beautiful in the evening light, its red sandstone buildings glowing warm, its trees and gardens providing relief from the day's heat. The call to prayer rises from a nearby mosque, and Mir Syed Ali joins the worshippers streaming toward it, removing his shoes at the entrance, performing the ritual ablutions at the fountain in the courtyard, then entering the prayer hall to stand shoulder to shoulder with other men, rich and poor, high and low, all equal before God in the practice of prayer. This is one of the beauties of Islam, he reflects, that 5 times each day, all distinctions of wealth and status dissolve in the act of communal worship, all bowing together, all prostrating together, all acknowledging their submission to the one God. The prayer is brief but profound, the familiar Arabic words and movements that have structured Muslim life for 1,000 years, connecting him to believers across the Islamic world, from Morocco to Indonesia, all facing Mecca, all performing the same ritual at the appointed times. When the prayer concludes, he exchanges greetings with men he knows, fellow artists, merchants, neighbors, then makes his way home. His house is modest but comfortable, built around a courtyard with a fountain and a small garden where his wife grows herbs and flowers. She greets him warmly, and together they share the evening meal, rice cooked with saffron and spices, meat cooked in a rich sauce, vegetables, flatbread, yogurt, fruit. His children join them, 2 sons who are learning trades, a daughter who helps her mother with household work. The conversation is relaxed and affectionate, family news and neighborhood gossip, plans for tomorrow, questions about his work. After eating, Mir Syed Ali sits in the courtyard as twilight deepens, sipping tea and smoking a hookah, the tobacco smoke mingling with the scent of jasmine from the vines that climb the courtyard walls. The fountain's gentle splash creates a soothing background music. The first stars appear in the sky, and he can see the silhouette of the Taj Mahal in the distance, Shah Jahan's monument to lost love, still unfinished but already one of the wonders of the world. He thinks about beauty, about the purpose of art, about why he spends his days creating tiny perfect worlds on pieces of paper. Art, in the Islamic tradition, is not mere decoration but a form of praise, a way of honoring the Creator by celebrating the beauty of creation. When he paints a flower, he is not simply recording its appearance, but manifesting its divine essence, revealing the pattern that underlies its material form. When he paints a garden, he is creating a reminder of paradise, a vision of the perfect world that awaits the faithful after death. This understanding gives his work spiritual dimension, makes it not just a profession but a calling, a form of devotion. The precision he brings to his painting, the care he takes with every detail, the hours spent perfecting tiny elements that might barely be noticed. All this is a kind of prayer, an offering to God who created a world of infinite detail and beauty, who made flowers that would bloom unseen in deserts, who designed the patterns of stars that wheel through the heavens. As full darkness settles over Agra, Mir Syed Ali retires to his sleeping chamber, a room cooled by the thick walls and by the breeze that flows through high windows. His sleeping platform is covered with cotton sheets and bolsters, comfortable but not luxurious. He performs his final prayers of the day, the Isha prayer, then lies down, pulling a light sheet over his body. Through the window, he can see the night sky, the moon a thin crescent, Venus brilliant in the west. He thinks about the painting he will complete tomorrow, visualizes the final touches he will add, the gold leaf that will transform certain elements, making them seem to glow with inner light. He feels satisfied with the work, knows it is among his best, hopes it will please the patron who commissioned it, and perhaps outlast his own lifetime, carrying forward his name and his vision of beauty into an unknown future. Sleep comes easily, bringing dreams of gardens more perfect than any he has painted, of colors more brilliant than any pigment can create, of beauty so intense it borders on pain, on ecstasy. In his dreams, he walks through the gardens of paradise, sees flowers that are also jewels, hears fountains that sing like human voices, encounters figures of such beauty they can only be angels or houris. The dream is peaceful and joyful, a vision of the reward promised to the faithful, the eternal garden where all earthly beauty finds its perfect source and completion. Section 6. Aboriginal Australia. Songkeeper at Sacred Site, Timeless. The sun descends toward the red earth of the central Australian desert, painting the ancient rocks in shades of crimson and ochre, transforming the landscape into something that seems more dream than reality, a place where the boundaries between past and present, between matter and spirit, grow thin and permeable. At a sacred waterhole surrounded by ghost gums, an elder named Jukurpa, his name means the dreaming itself, sits on the warm sandstone, preparing for the evening ceremony, painting his chest and arms with white ochre in patterns that represent his totem, the carpet snake, and his connection to the ancestral beings who shaped this land in the time before time. Jukurpa is perhaps 70 years old. He does not count years in the European way, but measures his life in seasons and ceremonies, in the accumulation of sacred knowledge that comes with age and initiation. His body is lean and weathered, skin darkened by a lifetime under the desert sun, his face deeply lined, but his eyes still sharp, still able to read the subtle signs in landscape and sky that tell him where water can be found, when rain will come, which plants are ready for harvest, which animals are moving through their territories. He is a Kurdacha man, a keeper of songs, a holder of the sacred knowledge that has been passed down through countless generations since the dreaming time when the great ancestral beings, the rainbow serpent, the honey ant, the emu, the seven sisters, walked the earth creating its features, singing the land into existence, leaving behind them the song lines that map both geography and mythology, both physical landscape and spiritual narrative. The waterhole where Jukurpa sits is one of the sites along a song line he inherited from his father and grandfather, a sequence of places stretching hundreds of kilometers across the desert, each site corresponding to verses in the song that tells the story of the carpet snake ancestors' journey through this country. To know the song is to know the land, for the song describes each feature. This waterhole, that rock formation, these particular trees, in the order they appear along the journey. The song is thus a map, a history, a legal document establishing ownership and responsibility, and a sacred text all in one. As twilight deepens, other men arrive at the waterhole, initiated men from Jukurpa's own clan and from neighboring groups, all connected through complex kinship systems and ceremonial obligations. They gather in silence, each painting himself with designs that indicate his clan, his totem, his relationship to the ancestral beings. The white ochre is mixed with water from the sacred waterhole, making it not just paint but a substance charged with spiritual power, connecting the wearer to the ancestors, to the land, to the eternal dreaming that underlies temporal existence. When all the men are assembled and properly painted, Jukurpa begins to sing. His voice is strong despite his age, rising and falling in the complex melodic patterns that characterize Aboriginal song, patterns that have remained unchanged for thousands of years, perhaps tens of thousands. The song he sings tells of the carpet snake's journey through this country, how it traveled from waterhole to waterhole, how it created certain features of the landscape, how it left its power in certain sites, how it finally transformed into a constellation of stars that marks the season for certain ceremonies. The other men join in when they know the verses, their voices blending and harmonizing, accompanied by the rhythmic clapping of boomerangs and the deep drone of the didgeridoo, a hollow log that produces a sound like the voice of the earth itself, like the breath of the ancestors, resonating in the chest and belly of the listeners. The music and singing continue for hours, the men sometimes sitting, sometimes standing to perform ceremonial dances that reenact the ancestral journeys, that embody in movement the stories preserved in song. This is not entertainment, but sacred obligation, Jukurpa knows. By singing these songs, by performing these ceremonies, by maintaining the connection to the ancestral past, they are literally keeping the world in existence. In Aboriginal philosophy, the world is not a dead material object that exists independently of human consciousness, but a living reality that must be continuously renewed through ceremonial action, through the singing of the songs, through the walking of the song lines that trace the ancestors' creative journeys. If the songs are not sung, if the ceremonies are not performed, if the connection to the dreaming is broken, then the world itself will begin to fade, to lose its coherence and meaning. This is why the knowledge Jukurpa carries is so precious, why it must be passed to younger initiates, why he spends his days teaching them the songs, the stories, the complex web of relationships between people and places and ancestral beings that constitutes Aboriginal law and religion and science all in one. The ceremony continues deep into the night, the men's voices carrying across the desert, echoing off the rocks, rising toward the stars that are themselves the transformed bodies of ancestral beings. The seven sisters fleeing from a lustful man, the emu stretching across the dark patches of the Milky Way, the Southern Cross marking the place where certain powerful ancestors ascended to the sky world. Finally, as the moon rises, a thin crescent low in the western sky, the ceremony concludes. The men embrace, confirming their connections, their obligations to one another, their shared responsibility for maintaining the land and the law. Then they disperse, each returning to his camp, his family, his sleeping place. Jakurpa walks slowly through the darkness, his bare feet finding the path automatically, his body knowing this country so intimately that he could navigate it blind. The night is cool, a relief after the day's fierce heat, the air clear and filled with the scent of desert plants, acacia and spinifex, native fuchsia and desert oak. The sounds of the night surround him, the distant howl of a dingo, the rustle of a small marsupial in the undergrowth, the eternal song of insects and frogs celebrating the presence of water in this arid land. His camp is simple, a windbreak of branches and spinifex, a fire reduced to glowing coals, a sleeping place marked by smooth sand, and a folded possum skin cloak. His wife is already asleep, as are the grandchildren who live with them now that their parents have gone to work in the distant town. Jukurpa lies down, pulling the possum skin cloak over his body, feeling the day's weariness settling into his bones. He thinks about the song he sang tonight, about how it connects him to his ancestors, to his country, to the eternal dreaming that gives meaning to all existence. He thinks about the younger men he is teaching, about whether they will remember everything, whether they will maintain the ceremonies after he is gone, whether the knowledge will survive the disruptions and temptations of the modern world that increasingly intrudes into Aboriginal life. But these concerns fade as sleep approaches, replaced by a deep sense of peace, of rightness, of being exactly where he should be, doing what he was born to do. His life is not easy. The desert is harsh, resources are scarce, the government's policies toward Aboriginal people are often destructive and unjust. Yet he has something precious, a connection to land and ancestors, a place in the eternal pattern, a role in the ongoing creation of the world through ceremony and song. Sleep comes gently, bringing dreams that are more real than waking life, dreams in which he walks with the ancestors, follows the carpet snake on its creative journey, sees the land as it was in the dreaming time when everything was fluid and possible, when beings could change shape at will, when the boundary between human and animal, earth and sky, past and present did not exist. In his dream, he is both himself and the carpet snake ancestor, experiencing the journey from within, feeling the power of creation flowing through him, singing the land into existence, leaving behind a trail of waterholes and sacred sites, a path that future generations will follow, a song they will sing to remember and renew the world. The dream is not separate from reality, but a deeper level of reality, the dreaming that underlies and sustains the physical world, that is always present beneath the surface of ordinary experience, accessible to those who know the songs, who maintain the ceremonies, who walk the ancient paths with awareness and reverence. Section 7. Pre-Columbian Andes, Kipu Keeper, 1400 CE. The thin mountain air grows cold as the sun descends behind the snow-capped peaks that surround Cusco, the navel of the world, the heart of the Inca Empire that stretches for thousands of kilometers along the spine of South America. In a stone room within the palace complex, the Kipikameok, the keeper of Kipu, named Yupanqui, reviews the knotted strings he has been working on all day, a record of tribute received from a distant province. So many llamas, so many sacks of maize, so many woven textiles, all encoded in the colors and types of knots tied in cotton cords suspended from a main string. Yupanqui is 48 years old, his face weathered by the altitude and sun, his fingers calloused from years of tying knots, his mind sharp with the ability to read, and create the complex information encoded in Kipu. He is part of a specialized class of administrators who manage the vast bureaucracy of the Inca state, recording everything: census information, tribute obligations, astronomical observations, historical narratives, all preserved in these knotted strings rather than in writing, for the Inca had no written script, yet built an empire as sophisticated as any in the world. The quipu he works with now consists of a main cord perhaps a meter long, from which hang dozens of subsidiary cords in different colors: white for silver, yellow for gold, red for warriors, green for agricultural produce. Each cord carries a series of knots, their position encoding numerical values in a decimal system, the types of knots indicating units, tens, hundreds. Reading Kipu requires not just understanding this basic system, but knowing the context, the conventions, the additional information communicated through the sequence and grouping of chords. Some Kipu are purely numerical, recording quantities. Others are more complex, perhaps encoding narrative information through sequences of knots that trigger memories of stories, though exactly how this works remains mysterious even to Yupanqui. Some knowledge is held by the most senior Kipikameok, passed down through restricted lineages, not shared even with other administrators. The Kipu system is thus both completely systematic and deeply contextual, both mathematical and narrative, both precise record-keeping and mnemonic device. As the light fades, Cusco is over 3,000 meters above sea level, and twilight comes quickly in the thin air. Yupanqui carefully stores the Kipu he has been working on in a wooden chest where dozens of others are kept, each labeled with a smaller Kipu indicating its contents. These records are precious, the memory of the state, the basis for all planning and administration. If they were lost or destroyed, the government's ability to function would be severely compromised. He leaves the palace complex and walks through the streets of Cusco, passing walls of massive stone blocks fitted together with such precision that no mortar is needed, their surfaces cut to fit perfectly against their neighbors, their weight and friction holding them together even through the earthquakes that regularly shake this geologically active region. The Inca are master stonemasons, creating structures of a durability and sophistication that rivals any civilization in history. The streets are busy with people finishing their day's work, porters carrying goods, soldiers on patrol, nobles being carried in litters, common people returning to their homes. Everyone wears clothing that indicates their status and origin. Different regions have different patterns and colors. Different occupations have distinctive dress. The social order is visible in every detail, strictly hierarchical, yet based on reciprocal obligations rather than pure exploitation. The state provides security and stability. The people provide labor and tribute, both bound together in complex relationships of mutual obligation. Yupanqui's home is in the administrative quarter, a well-built stone house with several rooms arranged around a small courtyard. His wife has prepared the evening meal: quinoa cooked with vegetables, roasted guinea pig, potatoes in several varieties. The Inca have domesticated hundreds of potato varieties, adapted to different altitudes and climates. They drink chicha, fermented maize beer, from wooden cups decorated with geometric patterns. After eating, they perform the evening ritual together, making offerings to the household gods and to Inti, the sun god who is the Inca's divine ancestor. A small fire is lit in a clay brazier and offerings are made: coca leaves, llama fat, maize. The prayers are spoken in Quechua, the language of the Inca, asking for health and prosperity, for the continued success of the empire, for the favor of the gods who control weather and crops and all aspects of life. The ritual complete, Yupanqui sits in the courtyard, chewing coca leaves, a mild stimulant that helps with the altitude, that suppresses hunger and fatigue, that has sacred significance in Andean culture. The stars are emerging in the dark mountain sky, brilliant at this altitude, the Milky Way so bright it seems almost solid, a river of light flowing across the heavens. The Inca are sophisticated astronomers, Yupanqui knows. They observe the sun's rising and setting positions throughout the year, marking solstices and equinoxes with stone pillars around Cusco's horizon. They track the moon's phases and the movements of planets. Most importantly, they observe the Pleiades star cluster, whose heliacal rising, Its first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility marks the beginning of the agricultural year, the time for planting in the highlands. Yupanqui thinks about his work, about the responsibility he carries as a keeper of records, as a preserver of the state's memory. The quipu he creates and reads are not just administrative tools, but sacred objects in a sense, repositories of knowledge that allow the empire to function, that connect present to past, that enable planning for the future. His work requires both technical skill and spiritual dedication, both mathematical precision and cultural understanding. As the cold intensifies, mountain nights are frigid even in summer. Yupanqui retires to his sleeping chamber, a small room with thick walls and a small fire pit that provides warmth. The sleeping platform is covered with woven blankets, layers of llama and alpaca wool that trap heat and create a warm cocoon. He and his wife lie down together, pulling the blankets over themselves, sharing body warmth in the mountain cold. Through a small window, Yupanqui can see the stars, can see the dark patches in the Milky Way that the Inca recognized as constellations. Not patterns of bright stars as the Greeks saw them, but shapes formed by darkness, by the cosmic dust that blocks the light of distant stars. There is the dark llama, stretching across a large section of the Milky Way, representing the llamas so important to Andean life. There is the fox, the snake, the partridge, dark constellations that rise and set through the year, marking seasons and ceremonies. He thinks about the empire he serves, about how it has grown in just a few generations from a small kingdom around Cusco to the largest empire ever seen in South America, stretching from modern Colombia to central Chile, from the Pacific coast to the Amazon jungle. This expansion required organization, administration, record-keeping, all made possible by systems like the quipu that allow information to be preserved and transmitted without written language. Sleep comes slowly at this altitude. The thin air makes breathing labored even at rest, makes sleep lighter and dreams more vivid. When Yupanqui finally drifts off, he dreams of quipu, of endless strings extending in all directions, each not a piece of information, each color a category of knowledge, the whole forming a network that captures everything, that remembers everything, that connects all parts of the empire into a single comprehensible whole. In his dream, he can read the quipu instantly, understanding their meaning without counting knots or analyzing colors, simply knowing what they contain as if the information flows directly into his mind. He sees the past preserved in strings, sees the future being encoded in knots not yet tied, sees himself and all the Kipikameak as weavers of time itself, creating the fabric of memory that holds the empire together, that makes civilization possible in these harsh mountain landscapes. The dream is purposeful, satisfying, reflecting his deep identification with his work, his role, his place in the complex machine of Inca administration. When morning comes and he wakes, he will return to his quipu, will continue the work of recording and remembering, will add his small contribution to the vast accumulation of knowledge that sustains the empire and connects its present to its past and future. Section 8. Closing Meditation and the Infinite Breath. And so, beloved traveler, we complete our journey through these sacred twilights, these moments when devoted people perform their rituals, their duties, their sacred work in service of something larger than themselves. We have stood beside fire keepers and healers, scribes and painters, songkeepers and record keepers, witnessing their dedication, their devotion, their careful tending of the knowledge and practices that sustained their communities and connected them to the divine. Feel yourself now sinking even deeper into rest, your body so relaxed it seems to have dissolved into the surface beneath you, your breathing so slow and effortless it seems almost to have stopped, though of course it continues, that faithful rhythm that has measured your life since birth and will continue until your final moment. Your face is completely soft now, all expression released, smooth as a sleeping child's face, peaceful and innocent. Your eyes are closed and still, the lids heavy and motionless. Your jaw hangs loose, your tongue rests quietly in your mouth. All the tiny muscles of your face that have held expressions all day long are finally, completely relaxed. The people we visited tonight understood something profound. That life gains meaning through service, through dedication to something beyond individual existence, through participating in traditions that connect past to future, earth to heaven, the living to the dead, and to those yet to be born. Whether tending sacred fire or healing bodies, creating manuscripts or singing song lines, they lived lives of purpose and devotion, lives that contributed to the great human project of creating and maintaining meaning in a vast and often mysterious universe. You, too, are part of this great project, though your work may be different from theirs, though you live in a different time and place. Your life matters. Your work matters. The kindness you show, the attention you bring, the care you take. All of this adds to the great sum of human goodness, ripples out in ways you cannot see or measure, but that are nonetheless real and important. But now is not the time for thinking about these things. Now is the time for complete release, for surrendering even the need to find meaning, for resting in the simple fact of existence, in the breath that flows in and out, in the heartbeat that continues its faithful rhythm, in the consciousness that witness. But now is not the time for thinking about these things. Now is the time for complete release, for surrendering even the need to find meaning, for resting in the simple fact of existence, in the breath that flows in and out, in the heartbeat that continues its faithful rhythm, in the consciousness that witnesses all experience without being changed by it. Let that consciousness itself begin to dim now, like a lamp whose oil is running low, flickering, growing dimmer, the light fading but peacefully, naturally, without struggle or resistance. You are not trying to sleep, but simply allowing sleep to come, creating the conditions for rest, and then surrendering to the natural process that your body knows so well. The firekeeper in ancient Persia understood that tending the sacred flame was not about control, but about service, about providing the conditions for the divine presence to manifest while respecting its essential mystery. You, too, can tend the sacred flame of your own consciousness with that same reverence, providing what is needed: rest, peace, surrender, while respecting the mystery of the process itself. The midwife in the Mayan highlands knew that birth cannot be forced, only facilitated, that her role was to create the right conditions and then trust the natural wisdom of the body to do what it knows how to do. Sleep, too, cannot be forced, only allowed, only welcomed when it arrives in its own time, in its own way. Your breathing now is barely perceptible, so slow and shallow you might wonder if you're breathing at all. Yet your body maintains itself perfectly, taking exactly what it needs, releasing exactly what it must, the ancient rhythm continuing without conscious thought or effort. The Ethiopian monk creating his manuscript understood that some things cannot be rushed, that patience is essential, that quality comes from giving each moment its full attention, from not hurrying toward completion, but dwelling fully in the process itself. Your journey into sleep is like this. Not a destination to rush toward, but a process to inhabit fully, each moment of relaxation welcomed for itself, not just as a step toward some future state. The miniature painter in Mughal India knew that beauty emerges from complete absorption in the work, from the forgetting of self that comes when attention is wholly given to what is before you. As you drift toward sleep, you too can experience this forgetting of self, this dissolution of the boundaries that usually define you as separate from the world around you. The Aboriginal songkeeper understood that the world is maintained through attention, through the singing of songs, through the walking of ancient paths with awareness and reverence. As you rest tonight, you maintain your own world through the gentle attention you bring to this moment, to this breath, to the sensation of relaxation spreading through your body like warmth spreading through cold water. The Quipu keeper in the Andes knew that information could be preserved in many forms, that writing was not the only way to remember, that knots and colors and sequences could encode vast amounts of knowledge. Your body, too, preserves information in forms beyond conscious awareness, in muscle memory, in the immune system's recognition of past threats, in the deep biological wisdom that knows how to heal and restore during sleep. All across the planet right now, in every time zone, in every culture, people are sleeping or preparing for sleep, participating in this universal human experience. In cities and villages, in deserts and forests, on mountains and islands, consciousness is releasing its grip, Bodies are resting, dreams are beginning to form. You are part of this vast community of sleepers, connected to billions of other humans in this most intimate and universal of experiences. The stars that shone on the Persian fire temple and the Mayan village, on the Ethiopian monastery and the Mogul workshop, on the Australian desert and the Andean peaks. Those same stars shine tonight, eternal witnesses to the brief lives of humans, to our struggles and achievements, our devotions and dreams. The stars neither judge nor interfere, simply shine with cold fire, marking patterns in the sky that have guided travelers and inspired wonder for as long as humans have looked upward. Let yourself become like a star now, constant, serene, burning with a light that asks nothing and gives everything, existing in an eternal present that knows neither past nor future, only the infinite now that is all that truly exists. Your body is so heavy now, so deeply relaxed, that you can barely feel it anymore. The boundaries between your body and the bed have blurred, between your skin and the air, between yourself and the space that contains you. You are dissolving into rest, becoming rest itself, no longer a person who is resting, but rest taking the temporary form of a person. This is the great mystery that sleep reveals each night, that the self we take to be so solid and permanent is actually fluid and contingent, that consciousness can exist at different levels of intensity, that we can let go of our identity completely and then reclaim it in the morning, that death and rebirth happen every night in miniature, preparing us for the final death and whatever may or may not follow it. But these are thoughts, and thoughts have no place in sleep. Release them now. Release everything. Let go of the day that has passed, of tomorrow that has not yet come, of the story of who you are and what you must do. Let go of memory and anticipation, of hope and fear, of desire and aversion. Let go of the very idea of letting go, for even that is too much effort, too much holding on. Simply be, and then release even being, dissolving into the vast emptiness that is also fullness, the darkness that is also light, the nothing that is everything. There is only breath now, and soon even breath will fade from awareness as sleep deepens, as consciousness releases its final grip, as the waking world disappears completely and the dream world begins its nightly flowering. The sacred work we witness tonight, tending fire, delivering babies, creating manuscripts, painting miniatures, singing songlines, keeping records, all of it was ultimately about the same thing: maintaining connection, preserving knowledge, serving something larger than individual existence. Your sleep tonight serves the same purpose, maintains your connection to life itself, preserves the knowledge encoded in your body and mind, serves the larger purpose of your continued existence and flourishing. Sleep is not escape from life, but essential to life, not a small death, but a renewal, not an ending, but a preparation for new beginning. Trust it. Surrender to it. Allow it to do its healing work while you rest in the infinite darkness that holds all things, that has held all beings since consciousness first arose, that will hold all beings until consciousness returns to its source, if it ever returns, if there ever was a source, if these questions even have meaning beyond the thinking mind's need to grasp and comprehend. Good night, dear one. Good night to the fire keepers and healers, scribes and painters, songkeepers and record keepers who have shared their evenings with us. Good night to all beings visible and invisible, mortal and immortal, actual and possible. Good night to the earth and sky, to mountains and rivers, to stars and stones, to every manifestation of the divine mystery that creates and sustains all things. Sleep now. Sleep deep. Sleep long. Sleep well. The journey is complete. You have arrived. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, no one else to be. Only this, the soft darkness, the deep peace, the infinite breath that breathes all beings into existence and breathes them out again, the eternal rhythm of creation and dissolution, of manifestation and return, of being and non-being dancing together in the space that contains all possibilities. Rest in that space now. Rest in that rhythm. Rest in the infinite breath that is breathing you. That is you. That is all things and no thing. That is the source and the destination, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. the first breath and the last breath and every breath between. Sleep. Silence. All words dissolve. All thoughts cease. All boundaries disappear. There is only the vast, luminous darkness that was there before anything existed and will remain when everything has passed away. There is only sleep, deep and dreamless, the blessed emptiness from which all things arise and to which all things return, the eternal womb of being and non-being, of consciousness and unconsciousness, of life and death, and the mystery that transcends and includes them both. Rest now, beloved traveler. Rest in the arms that have held all beings. Rest in the infinite breath that breathes all worlds into existence. Rest in the eternal present that is always here, always now, always offering itself freely to all who are willing to release their grip on the past and future and simply be, simply breathe, simply rest in the great mystery that has no name, no form, no beginning, and no end. Good night, good night, good night. Sleep.